I'm a nurse by training. I'll start out by telling you I have been out of high school myself 50 years this month. Graduated 66 June. And I'll tell you the one thing I remember about my graduation ceremony. We're outside. This is New York. And my maiden name was Paratori. Okay, letter P. That's important. Right around letter A or B, the PA system went out. So nobody could hear anything. And it was huge. I don't know how many people were in my graduating class. But a lot of people. And nobody could hear anything. Everybody was frustrated. When they got to my name, the PA system went on again. And everybody cheered and roared. And it was great. And I thought, they love me. And then I realized because the PA system went back on. So anyway, that's pretty much what I remember about it. I worked as a secretary for about 5 years, and then at some point I decided I wanted to do something different, something, have a career. I wanted to do something that was going to be what I decided I wanted to do. So through a combination of factors, I went into nursing school. Now I understand you're all thinking maybe about careers in the health field. Is that accurate? Is that true? Mm-hmm. Maybe thinking about it? So what kinds of things are people thinking about? Okay.
Dentist.
Dentist.
Something around like psychology, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Anything else? No? What?
Oh, technically, I'm not even in this class.
He's actually in my class from last year, and he doesn't have a class today, so he just wanted to hang out.
Okay, well, that's cool.
So.
Healthcare wasn't exactly anything I ever thought about. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to see the nurses in the ads look off into the sunset, and I thought, gag me with a spoon, please. I can't even imagine, something, I don't know, it just didn't seem interesting because I didn't understand really what was underneath all of that. And so with, I guess, terror, I went into nursing school. I started out an associate degree program because my husband was in the Coast Guard along with Grace's dad. That's how I know her. I pretty much remained terrorized, the first 2 years because it was so out of what I knew. I didn't know anybody who worked in medicine. I didn't know anything. But anyway, so then I graduated with that. I ended up getting my bachelor's, and then that was in psychiatric nursing. So at this point in my life, I'm really starting to think of what it is I want to do, where do I want to go with this. And psych was it. And I started out volunteering for a rape hotline in California when we were stationed there. And then I knew pretty much this is what I want to do. I want to work in psych. And then I worked at National Institutes of Health in Bethesda for 4 years, 3-4 years. And they had a really good orientation program there for psych nurses. And then decided I wanted to be a therapist at some point. And so that's why I got my master's in psychiatric nursing. So anyway, you're probably thinking, what does this mean to me? How is this interesting? I always say that the devil is in the details. And what does that mean? Okay, so the thing that makes, to me, psychiatric nursing very interesting is what you can do with it. And it's not just working with people who have mental illness, but trying to think of ways to keep well people functioning well and living their life as well as they can, as healthily as they can, not just physically, because most people think about physical health when they think of nurses, right? Is that what you think about? Yeah. Yeah, most people. So anyway, that's kind of where I went with it. And working with the rape hotline opened my eyes not just to the medical and the psychological aspects, but the criminal justice aspects. And so from there, in addition to working as a psychiatric nurse, I started working with families of murder victims, because that was sort of the next step in the progression. So I've done that on and off since 1988. And probably some of you maybe have lost somebody through murder, or know somebody, classmates, family, friends who've been murdered. So if you are, or if you can even just think about what that would be like, extremely traumatic, really affects your life as you can think, in many, many negative ways. So not just have you lost a person, but you've lost them in a violent manner, and you have to go through the criminal justice process. You have to go through having your loved one's face in the media, having microphones shoved in your face. These are things that make that kind of death very traumatic. So, as I say, I've done that off and on. And with that, I've had opportunities to take what I learned from homicide survivors and written about it. So I have a number of publications that I've done, because nobody else really has done much in that area. So I felt really good about that. And then around 96, I took part in a team that went to Bosnia. And do you all remember what happened in Bosnia in 1995, 96? Do you remember?
Well, we weren't alive, but.
We weren't alive. Make me feel old. And that's the problem. When you don't know about things that happen, even though they may have happened to me 20 years ago, is only part of my life, but 7,000 men were massacred.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing about that? Yeah, because it's still being played out today in world court, that the people who did that are being brought to justice. But in 1996, right after the Dayton Accord was signed and they stopped shooting at each other, I had the opportunity to go over, because of my experience with homicide survivors, and work with about 1,000, not just me, but my team, about 1,000 of the survivors who were in resettlement camps. So we talk about refugees today, so same deal. I mean, they've all endured really terrible things along the way. Being kicked out of their country, being forced to move because it's not safe, or there's no food. These are things that are still current. But as a nurse, I was able to go over and do those things. And we hear about nurses participating. Remember the tsunami? Do you remember hearing about that? A lot of medical people went over and participated in helping the survivors. So, I mean, there's a whole world of opportunity out there. You just have to figure out what it is that you want to do with it. Does that make sense? So, with all of that, today what I do is I'm a volunteer parish nurse at my church, and so we educate and inform people about health issues, or give them resources or advice, help them to figure out some of their choices, because healthcare is so complicated anymore. Certainly, the technology is way different than when I went to my nursing school, because I graduated in '76. And probably your teacher is not even that old. Maybe.
No, not at all.
Not. Yeah, and also I'm affiliated with a brand new concept called the Bon Secours Center for Hope and Healing, which is attached to Mary Immaculate Hospital. And it's a fairly new concept, but basically what we do over there is we run support groups. We have opportunities for free counseling for people who are bereaved. And so, kind of the sky is the limit. So, for those of you who are thinking about going into healthcare, and you think about a specific job that you want to do, okay, obstetrician, dentist, those are the tip of the iceberg in terms of what is available and what your interests are. So, it's unlimited in terms of what you can do. So what you have to do is figure out what you're interested in the most. Yeah, because even with obstetrics, there are so many different avenues that you can take. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So. so anyway, that's me. As far as nursing, there are so many different avenues that you could take. Or if you decide you want to become a PA or a physician or respiratory therapist, OT, PT, there are so many different possible jobs that you could look into, try out, go to school, try out if you're really interested, see if it's something that appeals to you, and go from there. Yeah, so don't limit yourself. Keep open to all the possibilities. See what you get excited about. Yeah. I feel like I'm doing all the talking. You guys are supposed to be talking to me. What questions do you have for me today?
What classes did you have to take when you were in college? Like chemistry and like
For
math?
nursing? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Since I started out with an associate degree, I had to take microbiology, and I had to take biology, but then when I went for my bachelor's, then I had to take organic and inorganic chemistry, A&P, anatomy and physiology. Yeah. I had to take ecology. I had to learn about pond scum to make me a well-rounded person. It was required. So I had to take an engineering class, and that was an engineering class. It was interesting because now I know about pond scum. Good question, thanks. You guys aren't shy, right?
No, y'all are quiet. I'm surprised.
So when you said you worked for the rape hotline, were the hours more in the nighttime, or was it like a 9 to 5 kind of job? Or?
No, I was in school full-time.
Okay.
And so some of my classes were daytime, some were nighttime. When I first started working with the hotline, I mean, I was always a volunteer with them. So you could take shifts based on your schedule. So at that time, most of the hours I took were in the evening or weekends. But I became director of the hotline because nobody else wanted to do it. So I learned how to be a director. And, oh, by the way, one of the other jobs that I had, kind of right after nursing school, but before I went into nursing, was I worked at a university in New York, and the guy I worked for had won the Nobel Prize in anatomy and physiology. He discovered the structure of the immunoglobulin molecule. Now, because I had been a secretary before, that was, most of the parts of the job were very easy for me, but I learned how to write grants, I learned how to write papers. So that's how I knew how to do all that stuff. So even though it was not in my field, it was an opportunity that came up and I just couldn't pass it by. So when I became director of the hotline, I used those experiences that I'd had, and that really helped me to do what to move the hotline forward. Because we started out as a hotline, but by the time I left, we had a center with paid employees and rooms, counseling rooms. So every experience that you have, you can use. Even if it's not something that you're quite interested in, take it and use it. Learn what you can and move forward. Yeah, use every opportunity. Yeah, because that's what it's all about. Because then when you get to be my age, then you can look back and say, I really felt good about some of those things that I did. They were hard, and I was scared, but I did them anyway. Yeah, just do it. Great question, thank you. What other questions? Some of the guys. See all the guys are kind of like, what is that about?
Hey, they chose their seats. Well, I've got a question. I know that you're, with your experiences in dealing with these victims, what type of training did you have? And, I know that for me, we've been trained to kind of separate yourself from, well, sort of,